Good morning and welcome to the Q1 2023 earnings call for EduFocal Limited. I'm Jeremy McDonald, the CEO of L.E.A.R.N, Grow, Invest, and it's my pleasure to be hosting this earnings call today. With me, I have Gordon Swaby, CEO of EduFocal Limited. Welcome, Gordon.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy, and the LGI team.
Yes, thank you for being here. All right, so let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the ability to produce wealth. Lord, we pray that you will just bless these proceedings, guide, and just direct the program, everything that will be discussed, everything that will be said. We pray that it will be to your glory. We pray that it will be a meaningful session for all who will participate in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, Gordon, I'll hand over to you.
All right, no problem. All right, so thank you again, Jeremy, and the L.E.A.R.N, Grow, Invest team for having me. The EduFocal. I speak on behalf of the EduFocal group, and I say that it is, quite an honor and a privilege to be doing our quarterly earnings calls with LGI. This is first of many. I think it is important to keep the connection with our shareholders, with our stakeholders, and this is the perfect avenue to do that. I want to start by reminiscing a bit. Not necessarily reminiscing, but just walking our shareholders and potential shareholders through the history of EduFocal, and then I'm going to take it to where we are today, the current structure of EduFocal, our trajectory, where we are and where we're going. So, LGI team, if you would switch. Okay, so this picture that you're seeing right here is at the launch of the EduFocal, the launch of EduFocal, the company, on March 15, 2012. In this picture, you have 21-year-old me. You have the MC for the event, Wayne Chen, and one of our title sponsors for our launch. So we actually had a sponsor for our launch, Phase 3 Productions and the BCIC. So we have Peter Levy, the company's chairman. At the time, he was not our chairman. He was not an investor in EduFocal. He was, at the time, in his capacity, just the managing director of BCIC, Jamaica's largest insurance company. Now, some shareholders and potential shareholders may know or may not know that we listed on March 15, 2022. So we listed 10 years to the day, right? Which for us was a dream come true. And when I think about EduFocal, or the EduFocal of 2012 and the EduFocal of now, a lot has changed, but so many things have remained the same. We have, for the most part, retained the same board of directors that we had when we started in 2012. And we are on a path to fulfill some of the dreams, aspirations that we had in 2012. Now, some of the things that we're doing, admittedly, have taken longer than we expected it to. Certainly, at 21, when I started EduFocal with my co-founder, Paul Allen, I had no idea what we were, I can't speak on behalf of Paul in this regard, but I had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. But a lot of the things that we wanted to accomplish, certainly from a business perspective and just mission and vision perspective, we have accomplished. So for example, from a business perspective, we said that we would list EduFocal, and I was very specific at the time. We said that we would list EduFocal on the junior market of the stock exchange. Now, this is something I would have communicated publicly. You can actually find articles online with me speaking about, or on Twitter, with me speaking about when we're going to list EduFocal. We didn't pull it off in 5 years, but we pulled it off in 10. Outside of EduFocal, I have never led another company before. I've been running EduFocal as its CEO for 11 years officially. Actually started working on the company and the idea in 2019 when I was 19 years old. The company was actually registered on November 19, 2010. So it's actually been unofficially a little more than 12 years. So, I have lived, breathed, select EduFocal, and I think where we are now, we have the right team to take us into the next decade. So yeah, let's just throwing in this picture. This is 21-year-old me smiling, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And let me just zoom in a little bit on this slide. Forgive me, it's a little bit small. But I just wanted to start here to set the tone, speaking a little bit more to our mission and vision. So Jamaica has about 45,000 births annually. Of that amount, 90% enroll into an ECI, as it is called, an early childhood institution. That's actually very good in terms of comparing it to what happens globally. At the primary level, enrollment falls to 83%, right? If you look to the right, and this is an excerpt from the Public Expenditure Review of the education sector in Jamaica. Low outcomes in education start showing early in the education system. In 2018, only 65% of fourth grade students have mastered foundational skills in numeracy, while 85% of fourth grade students master literacy. Now, at the secondary level, secondary enrollment falls to 80%. So from 90 to 83 to 80. And at the secondary level, we have, and this is from grade 7 to, I believe, grade 12, we have 211,800 students registered at the secondary level. And about 32,000 students sit the CSEC exam annually in Jamaica. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit worse. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So this is where things start to get a little, bad. 12% of students drop out before grade 11. Lack of interest is cited as the main reason. Only 40% of 11th grade students go on to sit CSEC. Of those that do go on to sit the exams, only 28% of students, or about 9,000 of them, pass 5 or more subjects, including math and English. 70% of secondary school students leave without any form of certification. Let me repeat that. 70% of secondary school students leave high school without any form of certification. Now, at the tertiary level, and we could talk about the tertiary level education in Jamaica all day, and these stats, by the way, have remained largely consistent. In other words, they're not getting exponentially worse or exponentially better. They've largely remained the same. Matriculation from secondary to tertiary is 27%. What's that saying? What that is saying is that most Jamaicans who actually, make it to high school actually don't matriculate into any form of tertiary education. So tertiary level enrollment rate in Jamaica is 27%. 69% are females and 31% are males. Now, the question must be asked. Forgive me 1 second. The question must be asked, right? 1 moment. Yeah, we have to ask the question, if 1 second, if only 9,000 students are leaving secondary school with 5+ subjects, then what becomes of the 30,000 plus children that were born around the same time as this peer group? Now, I wanted to share our start with this because it sets the tone for what we're doing and what our North Star is at EduFocal, our mission and our vision. So what you're seeing here in this document is what I call the Cradle to Grail, or education to career approach. I believe that there is a connection between educating people and placing them in jobs that need their skill set, right? And I want to share some more stats. Here's this stat, right? Jamaica's labor force has fluctuated anywhere between about 1.26 million people to 1.36 million people in recent years. It is estimated that nearly 70% of the labor force is unskilled or has no recognizable certification or qualification. And that's understandable and reasonable based on the stats that I shared before in terms of what happens at the secondary level, right? So it means then that of the 1.26 million Jamaicans that are actively participating in our labor force, 70% of them have no form of recognizable certification or qualification. This is, of course, a problem, but it is also an opportunity, right? So more stats. This is me zoning out a bit. EduFocal operates in what is called the EdTech space, education technology space. It's a relatively new industry. Let me not even say a relatively new industry. It's a new industry in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and largely the developing world. Um, so I have first mentioned the space that we're in. What I will now do is define what EdTech is. So I'm reading verbatim. As its name suggests, EdTech occupies the intersection of where teaching and technology meet. Depending on what purpose it is intended to serve, EdTech can take many different forms inside or outside the classroom, including educational apps and games, podcasts, learning management systems, video conferencing software like Zoom, for example, online discussion forums, just to name a few. So that is EdTech. So popular EdTech companies are Coursera, Udemy, Duolingo. Udemy and Duolingo, for example, are listed, I believe, on the NASDAQ. Very large companies. I believe Duolingo, for example, is larger than the largest company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Of course, it's an American company with a wide audience. I'm sharing that to say that the scope is large. And while we operate in Jamaica, we operate from a Jamaican context, and I am Jamaican, our team is Jamaican. Jamaica for us is a starting point, and as a patriotic Jamaican, I am keen, and the rest of the team, we're keen on solving Jamaica's problems. But certainly, as we solve problems in Jamaica, we're also looking to solve problems regionally and globally. Just to kind of give you an idea, shareholders, of the scope of the global education technology market, in 2020, the global edtech market was valued at 123.4 billion US dollars. And that is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 13.6% from 2023 to 2030. So it's a massive industry globally, still a growing industry globally with a lot of scope for growth. Of course, within the local context, we are a major player, but we're still such a small part of the global industry. Now, going back to the education to career slide that you're seeing on your screen here. In 2012, we started out in the test prep space, offering past paper questions in a gamified format for students sitting their GSAT exam. It's now called PEP, or the Primary Exit Profile Exam, and CSEC. We actually started with CSEC only. We started with math and English, providing past paper questions and answers for math and English. But we actually transitioned to GSAT at the time because we were seeing far more demand in that space. But that was not our big vision. Certainly, offering test prep questions and answers was not our big vision, but it is or was a starting point for us. So what you're seeing on your screen here is the path that we want to take and the path that we're taking. We started in test prep, as I've said before. Now we're doing more than test prep. We do live classes. We do, still doing test prep. We started a full-time online school. We threw all of that in that first category that you're seeing. We're just labeling it as test prep, right? In 2018, 2019, we got into the corporate learning space, started offering corporate learning content and corporate learning LMS to organizations. Since that time, we've worked with Hartrust, NTA, the JCF, J, and a number of private and public sector companies, Transport Authority, BCSC, a number of organizations. The next phase for us, will be certifying the learners that we have, learners at the, in the formal education system, but learners outside of the school system. And again, looking at the stats that we've shared earlier, there's a large amount of Jamaicans who are actively participating in our labor force who have no form of certification. Not having any certification is one thing. Certainly having no skill or low skill is another issue. So again, within the context of Jamaica, that is a big problem. But as an edtech company, we also see it as a business opportunity for us. Now, this kind of forward movement takes time, it takes effort. Operating in the edtech industry, requires an intense amount of capital and us listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange was a means of getting access to the kind of capital that we need to grow, right? And it is also heavily reputation based. If you're in the tech space and you don't have that reputation, then it's harder for you to do business, whether it is with private sector or government. You have to have the credentials, the reputation for actually affecting change. Now, after you've educated or you've certified all your learners, the natural progression for them is actually placing them in jobs that need them the most. So, just to kind of share where we are going, after we've built up a massive database of people, certified and trained them, we think that there's a great business opportunity for us to place them in the jobs, to match them with potential employers that need them. Now, we're of course a ways out from this, but I wanted to share with our shareholders where we're going, and the path that we're on. Now, I'll zoom back out. So how would we define EduFocal? I define it in this way. Just make it back full screen. Redefining learning today for business tomorrow. So creating platforms, content, and partnerships that will empower learners to develop the skills and competencies that facilitate a promising future. Jamaica, with its population of almost 3 million people, or GDP is around $5,000 per annum. Now, Jamaica has a productivity problem, both in the public and the private sector. And this should come at no surprise to anybody because, again, if you look at the stats that I've shared in context, 70% of our secondary school students leaving without any form of certification, no C6 subjects. They're leaving with no C6 subjects. It is not surprising that we are where we are in terms of the ranking in the Caribbean. Productivity is a problem for our people. Our people want to be trained. They want to have the opportunity to be trained. You have people who are self-taught plumbers, who are self-taught electricians. And while Heart and other entities are playing their role in advancing the skill set of our people, I believe that there is a great opportunity to collaborate with entities like Heart, in a large way, but also for private sector to play a big role, companies like EduFocal to play a role in educating and training our people. I believe that the path to doing this at scale is in a hybrid manner, right? So using technology, using our cell phones, laptops, etc., to train our people, to get them qualified and placed in jobs that are looking for them. So our mission and our vision. Our mission is to power a world of learning without boundaries, providing the tools and services people need to become the best version of themselves. Our vision is to leverage technology and expertise to educate people at scale, whether at school, home, or in the workplace. Our core values: 1, collaboration; 2, impact; 3, passion; and 4, transformation. And again, if you've been listening to me, you'd realize that a lot of the work that we want to do, or a lot of the work that we're doing, is fundamental work, things that can actually move the needle for our nation. In Q3 2022, we spoke about a reorganizational exercise happening in the company. This is visually what this reorganization structure is. We have 4 departments at EduFocal. The General Administration Department, which I serve in with my CSO, Dr. Anna Bethune, or Operations Department that was vacant up until late April. That's now being led by our COO, Mark Green, which I'll touch on a little bit more later. Our Finance Department, which is led by our consulting CFO, Keon Haynes-Burke, and our Product/Technology Department, which is led by my co-founder and CTO, Paul Allen. So we have 4 departments, and then we have 2 divisions. We have our Learn division and our Business division. In each division, we have segments. So we have the Health Education segment and we have the K-12 Education segment. Under the Business division, we don't have any programs per se, but we do have the Corporate Learning segment and the Business Development plus Partnership segment. And I'll touch on the Business division a little bit more later on in my presentation. Under the Health Education segment, we have VHSI as a program. Each program has a program lead. Our health or health education program, VHSI, is led by Tisha Vaughn. Um, we we also have under the K-12 education segment EduFocal Academy, which is led by Christy Fernandez, Clever School Teacher, which is led by Mark Gale, and our primary exit profile program, which is led by Nicola Chambers. Our management team is myself, Paul Allen, Keon Haynes-Burke as our consulting CFO, Dr. Anna Bethune, our Chief Strategy Officer, and our most recent addition, Mark Green, who is our COO. Our board of directors is led by our chairman of almost a decade or over a decade, Peter Levy. His day job is the managing director of BCIC. Myself, Grace Lindo, who is the partner at a law firm that she created recently. She was also with News School for L.E.A.R.N for a little bit. Carter Lindo is the name of her firm. We have Kevin Donaldson, who leads Roots Financial, also a major shareholder in EduFocal. Grace Lindo is a shareholder in EduFocal. Peter Levy is a shareholder in EduFocal. My father, who is a well-known businessman in central Jamaica, also been on our board for a very long time, and Shauna Gay Fuller, who is a recent addition to our board. She is one of the directors of Kingston Bookshop. And that is my presentation. Let me just close this out a bit. You can, LGI team, you can close that out. So yes, I just wanted to use that to kind of share with you, shareholders, the big vision, speaking about the edtech industry globally and what we're doing locally. Can you bring back up the slide or the slides on your screen? Yes. All right. So Q1. Well, firstly, before I go into Q1, I just want to touch on our financial year 2022, audited financial year 2022 for a bit. It was a tough year for us. We listed in March, as you'll recall, I mentioned that earlier. And while we were on pace, we're on the path to have a solid 2022, the accounting rules, IFRS, had a different idea. They had different ideas of us. So what accounted for the big loss in 2022 was, impairment, ECL. I spoke on that a lot in my CEO's letter that was released with the financials. But I'm very, very happy about how we bounced back in Q1. Q1 is the best quarter we've ever had, and the highest revenue, highest profits we've had in the company, not just for a quarter, but overall. So we had an 85% increase in revenue. And we had a year-over-year net profit increase of 1,972%. We also celebrated 11 years in business in March. Those are some general remarks. Strategic initiatives. I mentioned at the start of this earnings call that EduFocal has its roots in CSEC. We started with CSEC and we're looking forward to re-entering that space. And, we are interested in expanding to Africa. Or of note, our Chief Strategy Officer, Dr. Anna Bethune, is based in Lagos, Nigeria, and has been based in Lagos for many years. So Anna, for us, was a key hire, and her being based in Lagos was the opportunity for us to leverage the expertise we've developed and continue to develop in the edtech space, and leverage that expertise in Nigeria, both in terms of content development from the business division side, but also the leveraging our platform in that territory. And again, this is something that we'll be doing in other territories outside of Jamaica. This is partly a 2022 CSR highlight, but we are a sponsor of the Kingston Creative Initiative. We donated $1 million, and we'll be donating $1 million every year for the next 5 years to this initiative. I think it is an important initiative, and we're happy to support. We're also the title sponsor for the Jamaica Stock Exchange stock competition for 2023. All right. jumping into the financials, mentioned some of this before. So January to March 2023, revenue was 112.7 million, an 85% increase. Admin and other operating expenses up 19% to $70.3 million, largely due to front loading some of the costs, which is partly, employing people that will play a part or a role in growing EduFocal over the next 3 quarters and beyond. Of course, big highlight, net profit is $42.4 million, up 1,972%. Total assets grew by 3%. Of course, EduFocal as an edtech company, our balance sheet is largely intangibles. So developing content, developing the platform itself adds to our total asset base. Total liabilities $258.6 million. Of course, the loan, the DBJ loan, Mayberry loan accounts for a large part of that, and that's up 139%, and we've leveraged that in a big way to grow the company. Total equity is down 74%, and that is, of course, due to the loss that we suffered in 2023. Next slide. Cash and cash equivalents up 55%. Again, increasing collections, new business. We're happy that we were able to move our cash position from 13.7 in the comparable quarter, 13.7 million to 21 million. In Q1 2023, we collected more than $90 million in receivables. So we're extremely happy about that. Most of the receivables that we have now are current, and anything that was ECL'd, we're very, very optimistic about our ability to collect that or collect a portion of that in 2023. I spoke to long-term borrowings before, largely the loan from Mayberry. Short-term loans are down significantly; those are cleared out. And of course, the accumulated income/deficit is due to the loss that we had. Next slide. All right. So spoke to some of this already. Spoke to the revenue, admin and operating expenses. I don't think we need to touch on anything else here. Spoke on that already. Can move to the next slide. Largely spoke to this too. Again, we're very, very happy about our performance in Q1, and collections and new business accounted for us being able to have the kind of cash on hand that we had at the end of the period. Next. Company outlook. So in terms of the company outlook, we spoke about some of them already. I mentioned to you before that. Give me a moment. One moment, guys. Issues. Yeah, so we spoke about some of the initiatives that we have going on already. Well, before I get into the company outlook, one of the things I didn't mention actually is just a split. And this is something that we're actually going to try and share in our quarterlies moving forward. So for the Q1 2023 period, the EduFocal business division accounted for about 46% of revenue. VHSI accounted for approximately 3%. Academy accounted for approximately 3%. CST accounted for approximately 4%, and our primary exit profile program accounted for about 44%. One of the things that we're focused on both at Jamaica and elsewhere is developing tools and content that benefit teachers inside and outside the classroom. I don't want to touch on that too much on this earnings call, but we're very, very excited about rolling out tools and content that will help teachers in the classroom. There's obviously been a shift, in this post-COVID world. Students are back in physical school, teachers are back in physical school, and the roots of EduFocal, pre-COVID, was an EduFocal that was heavily involved in our school relationships. We had relationships with more than 300 schools in Jamaica. And in a lot of ways, those schools still depend on us, and we want to really, double down on those relationships that we have. So we are working on some exciting tools and content that we think will be beneficial to teachers, which will obviously be beneficial to the students that they teach. We want to, of course, reintroduce CSEC. We're looking on, aggressive expansion in Africa. That is very, very much in its early stages, and I wouldn't want to attach a dollar figure to that in 2023. But certainly, we think the opportunities there are huge. About 2 weeks ago, we sponsored an event. Well, we didn't sponsor the event. We were actually one of the entities that put on a tech event for teenagers in Lagos. We had over 3,000 attendees at the event, hundreds of schools. And, we've created a solid lead or a solid set of leads that we think will be very, very beneficial to EduFocal in the short, medium, and long term in terms of business opportunities. We're, of course, excited to expand to other Caribbean countries. Visited Guyana in I believe February of this year. We're having conversations there, but again, still early days. And a part of our growth process involves acquisition. We are looking at potential acquisitions. Those conversations continue, but we believe that a path for growth for us is the acquisition of companies. So, of course, through organic growth, but also through acquisitions. Outside of that, we're focused on growing VHSI, CST, Academy, or PEP program, and increasing the sources of recurring revenue for the business. So the business division in particular, as I mentioned before, accounted for a good portion of our revenue in the first quarter. The business division, I believe, has potential for more recurring revenue in the business. A lot of the work that we do in the business division is largely one-off work with clients. When I say one-off, it's not guaranteed recurring revenue, but that is changing. And we do have one particular initiative that we're announcing soon that will be a source of major recurring revenue for us. For CST in particular, CST, while it is a program, the assets of CST are held under EduFocal LLC. So it's a US-based company, which is what turned us into a group, the EduFocal group. While CST still only accounts for a small percentage of our quarterly and overall annual revenue, I think that CST has a lot of legs for growth. When we bought CST, we bought it at a very low multiple, and the business was actually in decline in terms of the recurring revenue that it was bringing in. There are a couple of things that Mark and myself and the rest of the team had to do to ensure that we're setting the tone for massive growth for CST, over the next couple of quarters. One of that is understanding how to generate the kind of content that the teachers are looking for, and then creating a channel of leads that convert into recurring subscribers for CST. So we're very excited about CST's growth for this year, and I think in terms of what we're going to introduce plus what we're already doing and looking to expand, I think shareholders can expect to see continued profits over the next couple of quarters. And I do genuinely believe that 2023, full year 2023, will be a massive year of growth for us, both in terms of top line growth, but also continued profitability throughout the year. Thank you. Questions and answers.
Yes, thank you, Gordon, for that comprehensive overview. We'll be taking questions now. First question from Tryon Browning. The CEO reports mentioned Clever School teacher is performing above expectations. Can you quantify these expectations that were exceeded?
Great question, Tryon. So I touched on it a little bit before, Jermaine, at least in the last part, to say that, there are a couple of things that we had to do. So I'm just reiterating what I've said before. There are a couple of things that we had to do. One, so just to give some context, the person that we acquired Clever School teacher from, she was and still is an influencer in the kinder space in the United States of America. So the avenue to getting customers came from her, right? Certainly we don't have that kind of exposure in the United States market. One, but so it means that we had to, and we're still doing, creating our channel for getting leads and converting those leads into customers for CST. Two, she was the one that created content for CST on a monthly basis. We had to find contractors who, and again, that's a process. We had to find contractors who could create the content for us, with some kind of predictable cadence on a monthly basis, because CST, the main part of the CST offering is releasing, effectively lesson plans for teachers in the United States of America on a monthly basis. I would say that we are about 70% there. And I would say that over the next couple of quarters, CST, certainly, I wouldn't say over the next 2 or 3 quarters, but definitely closer to year end 2023, I think that CST can be and will likely be a major part of our revenues on a quarterly basis, on a monthly and quarterly basis. So, when I say, or what I would have articulated in my report, that Grail School is performing above expectations. We had our own internal milestone about where it should be at a particular point in time, when we are ahead of where we expected it to be. So the kind of returns that we're expecting, and when we're expecting them, is ahead of schedule. That answers the question.
Okay. Great, thank you. In terms of receivables, what specific procedures have been put in place to ensure a disproportionate accumulation of receivables does not happen again?
Yeah. So a big part of, and I mentioned this in, I believe, my Q3 CEO's report, a big part of the challenge we were having is, of course, becoming a listed company and getting used to that, quarterly cadence of good news. We didn't have a lot of people in EduFocal that were responsible for responsible for business development, sales, and collections. Bringing Mark Green on board as our COO for us was one of the ways of tackling that, and part of the reason that we could, that I could spend so much time collecting outstanding monies to EduFocal in Q1 was really anticipating our COO joining the company. So if you think through the path, one, we had to restructure to make it clear internally and externally where our main revenue drivers are in terms of the programs. But two, establishing clear line of responsibility inside the company. I think I mentioned in the recent Mayberry forum that some of the best work that happens in companies actually happens internally and without people seeing it, right? What I mean by that, it's not sexy. It's not something that you can do a press release on. But when you're working on operating efficiency, you start to see the upside of that externally in your numbers. So Mark Green's, and again, Mark for us is a big hire, a key hire. Mark is coming from Flow, CWC. He was a senior executive at CWC. We're happy to have him on the team. And Mark is responsible for strategy, day-to-day operations, and executing very key projects in EduFocal. I'm responsible for strategy, for business development, for sales, and major collections, right? So a big part of my day-to-day is ensuring that key receivables are being followed up on, pursuing new business. And I think that, that clear expectation, clear line of responsibility will be beneficial to EduFocal moving forward, because the work is a little bit split up between different people, and we know exactly what we're supposed to be focusing on a daily basis.
Okay, so great, thank you.
I don't expect a repeat of that.
Okay. All right. As it relates to the delayed reports, why did the board of directors not consider a release of the unaudited Q4 report in the interim, or in interim of the extended delay 3x of the audited financials for 2022 report?
So the audit process for 2022 started late December 2021. Yeah, yeah. The audit for 2022 started late December 2022. In conversations with the auditor, we realized that there could have been potential key differences with what would be in our Q4 and what the full year would look like. And instead of putting out a Q4 and having to revise, we made the decision to, which is obviously well within our right per the JC rules, to opt to release full year audited. Um, so we never wanted a potential scenario of releasing a Q4 unaudited that would be drastically different from what the full year report would look like, just in terms of ECL calculations and so on. So that had to be a decision that we made at the board level.
Okay. A question from the community: schools and students continue to underperform. How does EduFocal plan to seriously contribute to the improvement of educational outcomes in a way that benefits the bottom line? And you kind of alluded to
that definitely, yeah.
That, yeah, man. You
I
gave
think
that.
I answered that at the
Yes.
start of my presentation.
Yes. So the person
In
who asked
detail.
that question just refer to the start of the
Yeah.
presentation. I think Gordon went in great depths to answer that. From Fitzroy, in terms of a potential acquisition, you mentioned on our interview earlier this year that you're looking to close an acquisition by the end of March 2023, which hasn't been reported yet. Can you provide an update?
So what kind of took center focus for us in the latter part of 2022 was really trying to, deal with the challenges that we were having with that fourth quarter and overall full year 2022, but also ensuring that our Q1 2023 was a massive success. I think that we've accomplished that. And the potential acquisition, still a conversation, still happening. But it took a back burner to the other things that were happening in the company. So we're still having a conversation with that party or parties. I can't speak to a timeline right now, but I don't want to say that it will be done by X time or that it will even happen at all. So that's something that we continue to explore. I would love to make that acquisition. I think it would be a key acquisition for us, but I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that this is definitely going to happen in a particular period of time or it will happen at all.
So would you say, from the point that it was first mentioned, that discussions have progressed, or based on what you described, it's really to, I guess, re-engage that party and see where things are?
I wouldn't use the word re-engage. I would say that it is a continued conversation. Both parties have to be comfortable with the terms. So it is still in its negotiating phase.
Okay. All right, thank you. EduFocal participated in the relatively recent Jamaica Business Expo trips to Trinidad and later to Guyana. Which subdivision of EduFocal are those deals geared towards for each country?
Okay. So we didn't go to Trinidad. We only went to Guyana. And that's one. Two, wherever we're looking at opportunity or looking for opportunity, whether in Guyana or Trinidad or Nigeria or anywhere else, we look at the opportunity for both our divisions, so both L.E.A.R.N and business, because we believe that there's applicability in all of these territories. So wherever there's opportunity, I think it is applicable to both our divisions. So we explore both.
Okay. When can shareholders expect to be provided with the data that reflects on the effectiveness of EduFocal's K-12 education program? This is from Troyan.
So that's something that we want to do. I can't speak to a timeline, but I'm hoping that it is something that we can include in at least one of our quarters this year. So I don't want to give a timeline for that right now.
Okay. A question from a community member: in terms of receivables, what specific procedures have been put in place to ensure that? I think we answered this one already.
Yeah, we answered that already.
Elaine is asking, is there any planned partnership with any government or private-based organization to increase reach and uptake of L.E.A.R.N products?
L.E.A.R.N and business. Well, I'm not sure if he's referring to L.E.A.R.N the division or L.E.A.R.N the business.
Elaine, can you specify? Maybe you can answer for both, I guess.
But the answer is yes. Yes to the division. Yes to the company overall. And we already work with private sector companies and government.
Yes. what is the relationship between EduFocal Limited and EduFocal Business?
So if you look at our full year financials, you saw that there was a related party balance for EduFocal Business, or from EduFocal Business Limited. In around, I believe, 2019, 2020, when we were getting into corporate learning, the strategy at the time was to have EduFocal Business Limited be a subsidiary of EduFocal. That registration was done with Companies Office, and we signed contracts under EduFocal Business Limited to kind of expedite the process or move things along. I was the only shareholder. There was supposed to be a transfer that didn't happen. But there are contracts that are finished and there are contracts that are still ongoing that are under EduFocal Business Limited. But EduFocal Business Limited does not operate. What happens is that EduFocal Limited does the work. EduFocal builds EduFocal Business Limited. Hence the related party balance. But outside of the names, the related names, EduFocal Business Limited does not operate as a separate company to EduFocal. It's just that there is existing business under EduFocal Business Limited, or contracts under EduFocal Business Limited. Once those contracts are closed out, then we will likely wind up, or I will likely wind up EduFocal Business Limited. It wouldn't make sense to, because we've changed strategies, it wouldn't make sense to have it as a subsidiary, because then it comes with additional administrative costs and headaches. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Next question, what services were provided to EduFocal Business Limited, and how the amount due from it been allowed to rise to the tune of 106? I guess is further to the previous question.
So I think, answered that.
Next question, how many registered users does EduFocal have for its B2C segment? What is the average revenue per user, and how have these metrics grown between, I believe, 22 and 23, maybe they're asking, but it says here 2022, 21.
Yeah. So just to recap, on the EduFocal L.E.A.R.N, the L.E.A.R.N division, we have a primary exit profile offering, our CST offering, EduFocal Academy, and VHSI. We don't actively track ARPA just because of the dynamic nature of the separate businesses. When we listed in 2022 last year, I mean, so much has changed. We were largely focused on the primary exit profile exam, which I guess is why we're referred to as a pet company. Since that time, we've introduced VHSI, we've introduced CST, and we would have just about started EduFocal Academy. Some of it is sponsored, some of it is people directly signing up. We have not been focused on tracking ARPO just because of how the business works, but it is something that we're looking at reintroduce, because it was included in our prospectus, but it's something that we're looking to reintroduce and share those stats with our shareholders in future reports. So I wouldn't want to speak, and I can't speak to ARPO at this point in time.
Okay, so based on the different business lines that you mentioned, is it still, I guess, feasible or maybe practical to track it in a way that maybe it was presented in the prospectus?
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? It may not be, because you may have students being sponsored on the platform for 3 months, and that's just the nature of the engagement. For CST, for example, the average user stays on for 10 months. But we may have sponsorships in the future that can be short-term in nature, and that would color the ARPO. So again, I do think there are relevant KPIs for each program, but ARPO may not necessarily be the best way to track the kind of value that each program is bringing to the table from a financial perspective. So that's still something, those are conversations that we're having at the management level, but we'll obviously communicate it to our shareholders in due time.
Okay, I think maybe if ARPO is going to be difficult to present, since it may essentially fluctuate, looking at maybe other metrics that can give an idea as to the growth or the expansion of the business lines would probably be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a fair suggestion.
Yeah. Next question, what are the steps being taken to address the significant receivables? We addressed this one already. Question, what is the average length of contracts in the B2B segment? What is revenue split between B2B and B2C? what is the profit split between B2B and B2C?
Can't speak to the profit split at this moment, but I can say that, and I think I'd mentioned it before, in the first quarter in particular, EduFocal business accounted for about 46% of revenues. The others combined accounted for the difference. So between VHSI Academy and CST and the primary exit profile combined, looking at it as a division, it accounted for more than half of revenues generated in Q1 2023.
Okay.
What was the other part of it? Yeah.
How do you see the state of online learning being impacted by generative AI?
Great question. I do want to speak on the effect or the impact of AI a little bit more. I would say look at it this way. When we started EduFocal in 2012, Paul and myself, one of the things that we wanted to do was to, for example, after a student gets a question wrong, to show work solutions. We actually started that process, and we had a database of, say, 30,000 questions at the time. We were actually paying people to go through each question and do the work solutions, right? I share that to say that here we are in 2023, and literally every single question in our database can be or can show work solutions when we start to, for example, leverage the AI technologies that exist. For example, ChatGPT or some of the other services that OpenAI have. I think that AI is a net positive for a company like ours, because 4 or 5 years ago, you would need more capital, more people to compete with larger edtech companies globally. I think now for AI, certainly for companies like ours in developing countries with way less capital than our competitors, in the United States of America and other countries, we can it's easier for us to compete with them now and to attract more users, just because we didn't make we couldn't have made the kind of investments that they made, largely through people, largely through engineering talent, largely through other kinds of talent. I think that it is a net positive for companies like ours to leverage AI, leverage the advances in AI, to better attract customers and to provide solutions and services that we couldn't do before. So when you think about even offering foreign language edtech applications or AI tutors, because when you think about even AI, the LLMs, right, is effectively the data set that is being used to train AI. Companies with a rich library of data sets will be able to leverage that data set within their local context to provide value. EduFocal has data going back to 2012, tracking students, tracking the kind of outcomes that they've been having. And I think that if you look back to what I've mentioned earlier, in terms of our trajectory, certification, eventually doing certification, placing student learners who are now adult learners into jobs, I believe AI will play a very big role in that for us. I personally use ChatGPT on a daily basis.
I've seen.
And I've been tracking AI for a very long time, and it's a conversation that we're having internally. But I'd say, we'll have more to share on that over the next couple of months. And it for me makes me more excited than it does make me concerned. That's all I say that for now. But definitely, it's very exciting for us.
Okay. In terms of the Jamaica Library Service partnership, how is that going?
So the library service partnership for us is more of a CSR initiative. We recently finished the painting of the Joyce Robinson Hall at the Tom Redcom location. We're looking to get the AC rolled out in that location soon. But the other side of the partnership is, of course, speaking to what we said in our release, digital learning centers. I'd say that we're far advanced with the rollout of that in a big way. That's one. Two, we already use it on a regular basis for the training or for the evaluation of the taxi drivers. So I mentioned before that we have a tripartite agreement with the ECIC and the Transport Authority. We use it for the examination of the taxi drivers for them to get their PVV badges. And that's been going very, very well. And we're expanding the number of locations that we're leveraging. Of course, the JLS has a large footprint island-wide, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we continue to grow that relationship, to grow that partnership, part CSR, but also part business opportunity. I mentioned that for me, the future of learning in Jamaica and beyond, particularly in developing countries, is hybrid. We certainly don't want to start physical schools or roll out physical ventures. But if it's hybrid, hybrid involves physical. I think there's a great opportunity to leverage physical resources, whether private or public, to advance the agenda of EduFocal. And that's what we're doing with the JLS.
Okay. Just a couple more questions on that point, Gordon. So, based on the number of locations, right? You had mentioned on a previous interview with us that project is gonna be you'll be doing it with partners. It's maybe close to a year since it was first announced. What is maybe the timeline for completion? For not necessarily all, but maybe when you may cover like a good portion of them, because based on what we've discussed previously, the feeling that I'm getting is that maybe you've just started to maybe make some progress with it, but maybe you still have a lion's share of the locations to revamp.
Yeah, man. So as I said, it's 300 plus locations. We don't have the kind of balance sheet or resources to do all of that ourselves. So we are in conversation with private sector partners to help us with that. Obviously there has to be upside for them in some instances, but also just social good, corporate good for Jamaica and Jamaicans. The library is important to all of us. A lot of us have memories in the library. I'd say this year we're likely just to focus on maybe 2 or 3 locations. Of course, the main ones, the Tom Redcombe location, Montego Bay location, and possibly say Clarendon. But I definitely would want to speak definitively in terms of the amount of libraries that we would quote unquote transform into digital learning centers this year. But I think very tangibly, in a very concrete way, by the end of the year, at least certainly the Kingston location will see some major transformation.
Okay, so the strategy then sounds like you're focusing on maybe the larger locations first, and then over time you maybe go based on priority. Okay. Elaine is asking, well, he's making a statement and a question. He says history is against L.E.A.R.N, and the biggest question is, can you repeat the earnings of Q1?
So I wouldn't say that history is against us at all. That's not my perspective. If you look at our historicals, we were profitable in 2021. No, sorry, we're profitable in 2020, 2021 full year, so 2 years of profitability. We did hit a bump in the road in 2022, which I've articulated the reasons behind before. Certainly this quarter has been, we're in Q2 now, but certainly Q1 is our biggest period of profitability ever. If you look at the arc or trajectory of any edtech company globally, most of them are still not even profitable, right? Or they've never had profitability. You look at a company like Duolingo, they've stated that they may never be profitable. We don't have that luxury. Wow. And we don't have that interest.
And hundreds of millions of people use that application.
Exactly, right? So for us, I think that what we're doing, where we are, the initiatives that we're undertaking will see profitability sustained. Recall too, Jermaine, that when we listed in 2022, some of the questions I saw were, is this revenue growth sustainable? Because we moved from around 12 million to 28 million in revenue, from 28 to over $100 million. And the question was, is this because of COVID? Is this sustainable? Now that we've experienced the kind of profitability that we've experienced, it is not an unreasonable question to ask. Would I say that history is against us? No. I would say that while I don't expect us to have 40 or 50 million in profits every single quarter, I do expect us to maintain and to grow a reasonable, a reasonable profit moving forward.
Yeah, you said it's begging me to ask the question: what's reasonable profit?
I mean, I do think we can perform, comparing us to our peers, other junior market companies. I think we can be a fairly competitive stock in a shareholder's portfolio moving forward. If you're obviously using profitability as a measure, so if you take everybody's profits, you average them out, I think we can compete fairly well in that area. Certainly, we were one of the best performing companies on the junior market for this Q1 period. And it is a tough environment, by the way, globally. It's an extremely tough environment.
Which should also be considered within how we are performing now.
Correct.
Opposed to when things do get better, it should actually bode well for the company.
Correct, exactly. So EduFocal performed, reasonably well in Q1, and you have to put that performance in context, because we do a lot of B2B work, we do B2C, and if your audience generally who you're targeting, both from a B2C perspective and B2B, don't have access to the same kind of liquidity as they used to have, and we performed well just the same. Certainly, I think that as things continue to get better, so I saw the report recently that inflation is down, which is excellent news.
Excellent news.
Saw that politicians are being paid more. That's a joke. But I think that, not looking at EduFocal specifically, but looking at Jamaica, I think that moving forward, certainly in the latter part of this year, things will continue to get better in the country, and things will continue to stabilize, which will only benefit EduFocal and other listed companies.
Okay, great, thank you. Question from Philip: can we get an update on the potential of EduFocal Africa?
So I want to manage expectations. I obviously, whatever I say publicly, people will hang on to it, reasonably so. As I've mentioned before, our Chief Strategy Officer, Dr. Anna Bethune, is based in Lagos, lives in Lagos, and I think the potential in Africa is unprecedented, right? But I prefer to under-promise and over-deliver. So EduFocal Africa, or operations there, still very much in its embryonic stage. And as soon as we have anything material to share, Phil, you'll be the first potential, I don't know if you're a shareholder or not, potential or current shareholder to know. But yeah, we're extremely excited about operations here, but wouldn't want to speak anymore on that right now, just because of where it is and what we're trying to accomplish there.
Okay. Elaine is asking, is there any planned focus on ESG by EduFocal? I believe Elaine is asking this because we met with L.E.A.R.N from CorpCare this week. Mm-hmm. So I think he's very interested in hearing what companies have to say about this topic.
I mean, in some way, we're already focused on ESG, and I've mentioned some of the initiatives there. If you go on the edufocalgroup.com website, for example, just from a corporate governance perspective, it is clear who, what our committees are, who leads them, but I think we should have some more transparency there. And again, that is something that, we are focused on, or it is a big part of our being as a company moving forward. But big up L.E.A.R.N, I know her very well, and I think CorpCare is doing some excellent work. So who knows, we may engage CorpCare to help us with our ESG initiatives.
Yes, that'd be good to see. So let me just check. Philip, I don't know if you were here before, but Gordon addressed the questions about related party receivables. So hopefully you were able to catch that, but that was addressed. I believe that's it for our questions. So Gordon, I'll just ask you to just say a few words in closing to your shareholders, potential investors, so on. So I'll hand over to you.
So again, thank you to the L.E.A.R.N Go Invest team for facilitating this earnings call. I hope that it was useful for potential and current shareholders. Thank you for the trust and confidence that you have all placed in us, placed in myself and the rest of the EduFocal team. I am excited about the next 3 quarters and beyond. And we're looking to delight our shareholders and to continue to create value in what is considered to be a very, very turbulent and uncertain time globally, locally, regionally. I am honored to be leading this ship, and we're looking forward to just continue to create value for our shareholders. And if you're not a shareholder yet, I'd say take a second look at EduFocal. And if you're a current shareholder, I'd say hold on, and possibly look at grabbing some more shares in EduFocal. But of course, speak to your licensed financial advisor to see if it is a good fit for you.
All right, great, Gordon. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching and being a part of this discussion. If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. And we'll see you at the very next quarter. We'll be having these every quarter with EduFocal. So we look forward to seeing you for the Q2 review. Please do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.